Who is he? Well, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to answer that exact question. We're going to be assigning him some basic personality traits, anything in the design or abilities I think might be important to his character, and finally coming up with a few fan-made backstories. Because they haven't given us anything yet, but Now, you may be wondering, Ira, how are you gonna find anything? They haven't given us anything, as you've clearly stated. Well, dear viewer, I have access to the voice files of this character. The one tiny bit of information we do actually have about the character, thanks to one very, extremely helpful and kind CDEF from the Forever Winter Discord, helping out with the wiki and helping me out. Wouldn't be possible without you, buddy. Now, the first character trait I think this man has is pessimism. Why? For a few reasons, actually. Let's get into it. Now, the reason I believe this is because a lot of his voice lines show that side of him. I'll play some now.
Over a long enough timeline, life drops to zero.
I mean, technically he's not wrong, but this isn't something someone would have in their head regularly. But the funny thing is, later, he contradicts himself. But we'll get back to that later.
No time to rest. Bad luck happens.
My interpretation of this line, that is, in his mind, something bad is always gonna happen. It's destined to happen. He's not even letting himself sleep to prepare for it. Which brings me to my next point. His next trait, anxiety. Now, once again, you can guess it. My reason for believing this are his voice lines. Let me show them.
Huh? Check those corners.
There's nothing much to analyze about this one, mostly just the way he says it.
I can't get the marching out of my head. Too many boots.
Now, my interpretation of this is that even on his breaks, even on his free time, he can't get that marching out of his head. The enemy slowly approaching. They're gonna get him. They're gonna get him. And I think that's a very anxious kind of thought, in my opinion.
Someone is down. This wasn't part of the plan.
Now, I want you to focus on how he says, this wasn't part of the plan. Not anything about being worried for the person or sad. No, he's planning these things out. He's planning these. He's horrified. He needs to have them all planned out. And someone's death doesn't matter to him emotionally. But since something bad could happen, because this isn't planned. Which brings me to his next trait, selfishness. Do I even need to say it? Just roll the clips.
As long as I'm the last one standing.
I mean, that entire little phrase is self-centered. He's willing to, let his friends die if he survives, you know? Pretty self-centered. Anyways, next one.
Everyone for themselves.
Now, this is his version of the scatter line. And instead of saying, scatter, get out of the gunfire, whatever, he's saying everyone for themselves. He is, once again, being selfish. And sadly, I don't have a smooth transition for the next one, but his final trait is silliness. I'm just play this clip so you guys can appreciate it. Bro is a silly little goober.
Tons of tangos in the area. Good thing I brought my bullet-resistant coat.
Also, something I'd like to mention. He talks to himself. Roll the clip, I'll explain after. It's really interesting.
Keep your finger off the trigger. Too many hostiles nearby.
Now, the reason why this is interesting is this triggers when you, not another player, hold on the trigger for too long around too many enemies. So either he's talking to himself, or he's talking to you, the player, which I think is a lot more interesting, also a lot more unlikely. So we're gonna go with the assumption that he's talking to himself.
Mask is the only thing holding my face on.
So anyways, with the context that he can't take off his mask, I think the tube on his mask isn't just for air. I think it's for food. Uh, I think he has to like find a liquid food, maybe even like pudding or something, and then just like siphon it through. Which is not gonna be pleasant, but it seems like something he has to do, sadly. I'm also curious what the designs on the helmet are, the patterns. He also seems to have a lot more tubes, so there's a lot more things going on than, just eating out of the big one. Now to make some possible backstories. First one, Europa. Now, my explanation for this backstory is that he was a soldier that survived way longer than anyone should have. Just over days, and because this faction has guns from like all over the place, he learned every gun. But he went insane because he was on the front lines for so long, because he wouldn't die. This one explains the gun mastery, but it does not in any way explain really the face thing being melded to the mask. So, Next up, Eurasia backstory. My theory for this backstory is like most citizens in Eurasia, he got cyborgified. Except, I think he was a soldier before that. So, they kind of like grabbed him, put stuff in his brain, and like hacked at his face, like repeatedly. Like just like till blood everywhere. And he probably killed everyone after that too. But this would explain the mask very well, having it being the only thing holding his face on after it got lobotomized. And it would explain the gun expertise a little well. Not perfectly, but okayly. Now, I personally, not going to cover it much. I don't think he's possibly Euruscan. If he is, it's very simple. Probably just a super soldier from there. Nothing crazy. My final possible explanation is that he was a disturbed man who picked up a gun and just rolled with it. I don't know.
Uh, 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 Always a pleasure, folks.